Good afternoon once again, ladies and gentlemen. So, engineering intelligence, and who better to talk about it than India's most iconic engineering company, Larsen & Toubro. And to help us understand, Mr. Kamat, get us to understand how a traditional company like yours is really adopting AI in our day-to-day lives, and what's really changed for you over the past couple of years.
Sure. Firstly, thanks for having me here. And just to set some context on, the scale at which we operate, right, as Larsen & Toubro. So at any point in time, we are like having 800 plus projects, including bridges to airports, to heavy engineering, precision engineering systems, defense, nuclear projects, and close to around 40,000 plus assets that include, pumping stations to fuel bowsers, gantry cranes, you name it, right? And over the last, I would say, a decade or so, we have been through this journey of digital transformation, which basically meant, we can have a connected ecosystem across these project sites, across this equipment, all of that, IoT, sensors, cameras, all of that. OT data, IT data, all streaming in from ERP systems, IT data from the ERP systems, and all of that, right? Which basically meant that we could have micro and macro level views of project performance, asset utilization, aspects like safety, all of that, right? So we've been through that journey. And over the last, I would say, couple of years now, we've been in kind of a mission mode, so to speak, in terms of how we can apply AI to take our operations to a whole new level, right? And in that context, we've been looking at some of our core business workflows, entire life cycle, all the way from beginning from contracts to procurement to, how do we execute on projects, planning, all of that. Just to take an example, we handle close to around maybe 3,000 to 4,000 tenders that we respond to on an annual basis. And the whole process of responding to a tender goes through this whole rigor of, looking at risks. There are multidisciplinary teams that get involved in looking at risks, doing a bid assure, go, no go kind of a decision. And that whole process takes close to around 1 to 2 months. Right? Now, with all the advancements in generative AI, looking at all the project history that we have, some of the tenders that we have responded to in the past, can we break this down to a matter of days or maybe a couple of weeks versus having to take so much time in responding to a tender? So that brings in agility in terms of how we respond and how we conduct business in some sense. We're also looking at this whole concept of physical AI or embodied AI. I think that's a big motion around that. Because apart from back office processes, I think the potential or the promise of physical AI at project sites where we can automate tasks at project sites, I think holds immense potential. Just to give some examples, and in the manufacturing space, this has been happening for quite some time. But in the construction domain, I think it's something that's beginning to evolve very significantly. I mean, just to share an example, if you were to do, let's say, robotic painting at a building or at a site, we're looking at potentially 1:5 kind of productivity ratios. And think of a robot doing this, it's not working in a single shift. It's doing probably 3 shifts potentially versus, workers that would be probably working in 1 shift. So the order of magnitude impact is very significant. So those are some of the things that we're looking at from an AI perspective.
Since you did talk about the vastness of this conglomerate that you are a part of and, how at such a huge scale you've been functioning, what is the AI strategy going to look like over the next couple of years for you? And how are you going to be prioritizing, sequencing those AI-based decisions, especially when we try to understand how it can lead to business impact and scalability?
Yeah, well, I mean, the way we look at our AI strategy broadly is, in the context of, a lot of our core business workflows, core business processes, whether it's planning, finance, procurement, project execution, what is it that is required here and now, right? And in that context, we are looking at various different, AI techniques, whether it's traditional AI to composite AI, generative AI. Now there's a lot of buzz around agentic AI, right? So how do we sort of look at various different processes, break them down, and bring in that near autonomous kind of workflow with AI, right? Take procurement, for example, right? I mean, today our procurement runs into close to around 100,000 crores annually, and there's so much room for inventory optimization, bringing in vendor intelligence, whether it's based on past history, price, performance, even market intelligence that we can bring in while we are taking these procurement decisions. A lot of that can be done through agentic AI, right? So a lot of our solutions are here and now, which are very important. There's immediate productivity impact. There's an impact in terms of savings, or maybe other aspects like safety and compliance, some of that. But also there are more, let's say, involved problems which have a greater gestation time. Could be things like engineering drawings, right? First principles based engineering drawings where we need to sort of understand what's in let's say, a piping and instrumentation diagram or an electrical diagram. So that requires a lot more, rigor in terms of how AI can sort of do that reliably. And the potential again is immense, whether it is, if you're able to read an engineering drawing, you can then generate maybe a bill of quantity, you can do, maybe site inspections based on planned versus actual. So a lot of that comes into play. So some of these are more involved solutions, and in those areas what we're doing is we have an innovation studio kind of a construct where we sort of partner with technology providers and also some of the premier institutes where there's more frontier research that is happening. So, we can bring all of this into play and we can reduce the innovation cycles and, sort of accelerate the time to value.
Absolutely. Now, help me understand, how are you also, fostering this AI-aware culture in your company, especially when it comes to cross-functional capabilities and collaboration that's happening between the technical as well as the non-technical teams as well? Could you throw some light on it?
I think increasingly those barriers are collapsing. I think when we talk to a lot of, our so-called non-technical teams, we find them to be a lot more aware about AI than some of us are in the AI teams itself. Right? I think any company today is a technology company in some sense. And one of the things we have done is we set up what we called an academy for digital transformation along with our learning and development team internally. So the idea was to cultivate digital ambassadors, digital catalysts, people that can basically drive this whole agenda of digital AI adoption in the field. So we do a lot of that. And I think that has helped us significantly through this journey. And also I think in any project that we are embarking on, the way we start that is, working with the multidisciplinary, cross-functional teams. Because a lot of times I think what gets missed is there's a lot of focus on the technology, but not so much on the people and the process part of it. And I think when we sort of do this as a team sport, right, with cross-functional teams, I think there's better, a way to step back and look at whether processes need to be re-engineered for AI to be effective. So I think that's the way we typically operate, and that's how I think we are driving.
When we talk about what are the emerging AI trends, what would you really pen down on, which have the maximum potential to really lead the growth in the construction and manufacturing space from now?
I think two things that we have seen significant impact from, and I think will continue to deliver immense value. I think this whole concept of, as I was mentioning a while earlier, agentic AI, right? I think the ability to sort of, have your workflows broken down and then be able to take near autonomous, decisions, which was previously being done by, previously being done manually. I think that helps us free up a lot of our resources to do more higher end jobs. And whether that's procurement, whether it's any of the different business functions. And the other big play for us is, like I was mentioning, in the construction domain, we have some, major problems with areas like workman shortage, for example. So how do we address that issue with this whole concept of embodied AI? And it's a little difficult in the construction space because unlike in a manufacturing environment where everything is controlled, in a construction domain, things are dynamic. There are things that are moving all the time. There are undulated surfaces. So having a robotic play in a construction site means you need to have more advanced navigation, perception capabilities. So those are the kind of things that we're looking at as game-changing in this space.
If I have to ask you, on not just for your company, but for India and India's infrastructure future, and if I have to ask you to define what could be that one moonshot AI project, how would you be really looking at that?
Well, I think maybe in a few years from now, we'll probably have meetings where you have obviously your staff, maybe your project site members, but you'll probably also have a digital AI agent attending that meeting. That agent has a name. Maybe the physical agent at the site has a name, and they're equally participating. And I think to the point earlier about human machine interaction, I think we'll see it actually coming live. So I think that's not too far off. I think that'll be the new way of working. Maybe in a few years' time. We're not there yet, but hopefully we'll get there sometime.
Could you also name any challenges that you're facing at this point in time to keep up with this evolving AI on a day-to-day basis, and of course ensuring that your own workforce is reskilling at the same pace?
Yeah, I think a couple of things that come to mind. I think one is there's always a sort of a change management aspect that I think we need to be aware of, very cognizant of, and make it as a part of our project rollouts and how we drive adoption. Because like you rightly said, I think the pace of change is so fast, and there's so many different apps, so much legacy already in place. It does require some amount of thinking in terms of how change management happens within the organization. That's one part of it. And the other part of it is, I think we need to be very cognizant of, and I think this was a point made in the earlier panel discussion as well, is we don't want to get into a situation again where there are like maybe 100 or 200 agents or 200 apps, and then we are in this, again, situation of how do we manage this sprawl, right? So I think those are some of the considerations to be very thoughtful of, be very mindful of, as we embark on this journey, do things in a mission mode. I think having that, slightly longer term view in terms of how all of this will pan out, I think will be very critical.
Mr. Kamat, we started off by saying, and I mentioned that yours is a very traditional company, and how are you transforming it with AI? Chances are that you're already diversifying in a big fashion, and what we're given to understand is that L&T is also diversifying, it's getting into electronics manufacturing now, and how you may be looking at Chennai or land near Chennai is already getting acquired for it. Could you help us understand what's the thought behind this diversification? What's the next road that L&T is going to be taking? And could you also help us understand what would this EMS opportunity mean for L&T as a construction manufacturing company now getting into the EMS space?
I think we've continuously looked at how do we, sort of diversify our portfolio, rejig our portfolio. Sometime back we started off branching into services, right? So we've had LTI Mindtree and L&T Technology Services as our services divisions within L&T, right? And that's been a natural evolution from where we've been. And it kind of makes sense from an overall, sort of a portfolio perspective in terms of margin expansion and growth. And I think that's a call that the company has always been taking in terms of assessing what are the new sort of technology trends, what are the new business opportunities for growth as a conglomerate. And I think this is obviously one of the new forays that we are now making. We've been into L&T semiconductors, and I think now L&T electronics, I think, will be the new big foray that we are going after.
Would you be going solo or partnering with a global company there?
I think we'll see how that evolves.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Kamat, for being with us. Huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for India's iconic engineering giant. May I please request Mr. Siddharth Zarabi to come up on stage, Group Editor, Business Today, to present a token of appreciation to you, sir. Thank you so much for this wonderful conversation.